You're listening to CFRN, a community of believers who trade for a living. To learn more about who we are, what we do, and how we do it, call toll-free 1-866-928-3310, and we'll send you out a no-obligation information kit absolutely free. 866-928-3310. The CFRN Emini Futures Cast is now on Stitcher. Listen to us on your iPhone, Android phones, BlackBerry, and WebOS phones. Stitcher is smart radio for your phone. Find it in your app store or at Stitcher.com. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.
Are you ready, Steve? Andy? Yeah! Bert? Well, all right, fellas. Let's go!
You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Today's broadcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/CFRN. Over 85,000 titles. Choose from mystery, romance, religion, science, technology, business, New York Times bestsellers, even children's books. You name it, Audible has it. With 85,000 titles to choose from, you're sure to find the perfect audiobook for yourself or to give as a gift, and it's absolutely free. Just point your browser to audibletrial.com/CFRN. That's audibletrial.com/CFRN. And become a part of the audiobook revolution by downloading your free audiobook today. audibletrial.com/CFRN.
Hey, trader, want to get rich quick? Well, good luck with that. If, on the other hand, you actually want to learn how to trade, the place to be is www.cfrn.net. Tune in Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern for our daily devotional, and then spend the next 3 hours learning how it's done from professional traders who actually trade for a living. That's www.cfrn.net. Every trading day from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. CFRN, a community of believers who trade for a living.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN Emini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things Emini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro, and even T-bills. Joining us today from our studios in Boston, Mr. Michael Bork. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Monday, the 8th day of May, 2017. So glad you could join us. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. We're going to go straight over to Michael. He's doing planes, trains, and automobiles today. So Michael, if you're ready,
I am ready.
Take it away.
All right, here we go. Change presenter first.
We had a problem with your audio not showing up, or any of the guests' audio showing up on several of the episodes last week.
Yeah, the last two, I think. I had a couple of guys said that they went to listen to it on the Emini page.
And yeah, so I'm just gonna take those down because it just seems weird with that blank spot, and I got to figure out what the problem is. So today I'm recording just using the GoToWebinar, so those folks who normally tune in via YouTube, I'm not broadcasting live on YouTube today. So Anyway, I'll hit mute on my end, and it's all yours.
Okay. All right. All right. Housekeeping just knocked on the door and totally ignored the sign outside. Anyway, here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, the 8th day of May, 2017. Let me get this up here so you can see it. There we go. If you have not taken a free trial with us, we've made it really easy for you now. You just got to go to the home page at CFRN.net, and right up in here at the top, it says, want to learn how to trade? You say yes, put in your email, put in your name, click take the tour. All right, once you do that, we'll get an email from you, and we'll send you a confirmation email to make sure that we're not spamming you, okay? Once you do that, you'll get all the information to get into our live training room for the next 5 luxurious days, okay? So today, let's go over today. If you're going to look at the spreadsheet, you got to read all the CFTC risk disclosures stuff down at the bottom. All right, today was the 8th day of May 2017, and in the euro we made 2 ticks. In the NQ today we made 5 ticks. Crude we made 15, and in gold we lost 4. So the gross was 147.50 in the morning. All right, today it took us 6 minutes and 1 trade to get to our goal for the day. At that point we're up $100 a contract, and we took a total of 9 opportunities this morning. On the month now, we're up 652.50. That's over 6 days, averaging 108.75. 108.75. On the month now, we're up $13,363. I'm sorry, not the month. On the year now, we're up $13,363. That's over 86 trading days, averaging 155 per day. Okay. All right. Let's get into what happened today. Now, I want to start out here with the ES. This is not the way I normally do it, but I just want to show everyone the ES because I'm really going to be quick about the NQ because I really do have to catch a plane. But the ES was in a zone all morning long, all morning. So there was very little that we could do with the NQ. All right, we did end up, well, in this point right here, where the ES pulled up to the BBC, the NQ gave a long trade. That's where we got our 5 ticks on the NQ. Okay. Now, gold. In the gold, we had 2 opportunities right here. We had this one where we stopped out, and this one where we made 4 ticks. We missed this one, and then this, it just never happened after that. There was nothing else we could do after that. Okay. In the euro, the euro had some really nice legs this morning. If you look at it this way, yeah, this way, right here. In the euro, we got this one for a couple of ticks, and then it pulled up here, made a nice leg down. We missed this leg, and then the cycle was going up too steep for that leg, and then it was in the middle for that leg, and it was going up too steep for that leg. But leg, 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 leg. Some really nice legs. During the break, there was a bounce off the BBC right there. Okay, so we ended up with just plus a couple on the euro. On crude, this is where we got our goal for the day early on. Okay, right here. First opportunity of the day. Now, look right here when crude pulled back up and bounced off the BBC and broken dynamic support at the same time. For those of you guys who are partners, that is a great opportunity. Okay, and we got the bounce off the BBC, and it moved down, and that was all we needed. Okay, there was another leg following it, but I missed that one. Change of direction, we couldn't do anything right here, and we couldn't do anything right here because the black step line crossed below the BBC. We couldn't do anything over here because it was a momentum trade going into dynamic resistance. Then finally there was an opportunity here for about 5 or 6 ticks, which we didn't get. The next one that we did get was right here. We got 5 ticks on that, and then a break even right there. All right, then it changed directions, and it whipped around right here really quick from 1034 to 1035, and then it obviously changed directions here, but there was nothing we could do here because we had not broken dynamic support yet. Then you can see in here, this was toward the end of the room. There was a shorting opportunity there, and another one right there, and that was it. I mean, crude has been sort of spastic. Do nothing, 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 then just jump up and down and up and down. And that was crude today. We had 15 ticks on crude. Now the MQ, we just had the one opportunity here. Oh, nope, sorry, 3 opportunities on the MQ. We had a break even there. We missed that one. We missed that one. On this one, we got 1 tick, and on this one we got 4 ticks. Okay, that was at that spot on the ES that I told you was going up to the BBC. Okay, there were a couple here when the ES was initially going down to the BBC, and that was it. That was it on the MQ. All right. Yes, thank the Lord, John. All right. So let me bring this back up. Okay, if you're gonna read the spreadsheet, you gotta read the CFTC risk disclosures. Okay. So today is the 8th. We made 2 on the euro, 5 on the MQ, 15 on crude, -4 on gold, 147.50 total gross on the day. Today took 6 minutes and 1 opportunity to get to $100 a contract, and we took a total of 9. Down here, 652.50 gross on the month over 6 days, averaging 108 per day. We're going to get that number up. It's going to go up much higher. On the year now, 13,363 over 86 days, averaging 155 a day. Okay, averaging 155 a day. Again, if you're going to read that, you got to read CFTC risk disclosures down at the bottom. To take the free trial, go to the home page at CFRN.net. It's really simple now. You just got it right here where it says your email, put in your email, put in your name, click take the tour. That's all you have to do. Okay? All right. And with that, I am done, and I can pass it back out to Dwayne, fabulous Phoenix, Arizona. Overlooking nation's largest city park. I get that right?
You got it, buddy.
I did. You'd think. After 11 years. All right, let me pass it out to you.
Yeah.
There we go. There you go. You got it.
I got it. Okay.
Yep, I can see
All
your
right.
charts.
Have a safe flight.
All right, thanks. Thanks. I'll talk to you a little later.
Okay, buddy.
The recap, if you want it, is 1 trade, 6 minutes, $100 a contract. Recap of the recap.
Nice start for the week.
It is. It is. God willing, it will continue. All right.
All right.
Gotta wrap it up. I'll see you a little later.
Okay. Take care. Alrighty. Normally we start out with the numbers, and so that's where we'll go right now. We'll start with the cash numbers here in the U.S. The Dow is down 19 points. NASDAQ is down 12.5. S&P 500 is down 4, and the Russell 2000 down 9.5. In the commodity basket, crude oil is down 32 cents, trading $45.90, and gold is up 30 cents, trading $12.27.20. In the Asian markets, nice. The Nikkei closed up 450 points. That's well over 2%. Shanghai, a little different story, closed down 26 points. That's almost 1%. And the Hang Seng closed up 101 points. That's almost half of 1%. Last but not least, in the European markets, the FTSE closed up 3.5. The DAX closed down 22. And the CAC closed down 49. The only mover and shaker in that bunch would be the CAC, which is down almost 1%. Okay, so those are the numbers. Asia mixed, Europe mixed, and in the US, it's all red. Except for gold, which is now up 60 cents. Trading 1227.50. All right. As you can see from the chart I have up, that's if you can see the chart I have up. If you can't see the chart I have up, go to our homepage at CFRN.net. On the right-hand side of the page, click the big microphone, follow the instructions on the next page where it says Watch Live Now. Click that, and within 30 seconds, you'll be able to see the charts and access the chat box. You won't have to register again until the 1st of June. For the rest of the month, you'll be able to join the show every day with a one-click access. Okay? All right. Speaking of the chat box, we'll see if there's anything that didn't get answered. Morning to you, John B. Nope, got no unanswered questions. Again, I trust you all had a great weekend. Now, on this chart, S&P 500, last night was an odd night. The French election was taking place. Most of the clearinghouses and brokers raised their margins during that election. And the S&P, we closed here on Friday. We had a Concierge Trade Alert, consider buying 2387. First move went up 4.5 points. And then by the end of the day, the thing had worked its way all the way up to 2399. Basically a 12-point move. From this little pullback here, 12 points up to here. Now that's Friday's close. This big red candle, that's the Sunday night Globex open. So from 23.99, we gapped open last night all the way up to 24.02 and then sold off. Not that big of a gap. The high of that, those are 30-minute candles. The high of that candle was 2403.75. That wasn't that big of a gap, but it was enough to notice. And then things just kind of went south from there. As you can see, these are last week's zones. And last night on the S&P, we were looking to be long at 24.01. Now the alerts went out at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, which is right there. Okay, so long 24.01, we did not trigger. Short 23.90. The swing low was 89.75. Now, if you took the trade based on where you had to put your stop, you may or may not have taken that trade. If you did, you're still in the trade. And if you took the trade, you haven't been stopped out yet, not if you're using a 30-minute chart. But if you're waiting for the next opportunity, that looks like if we come down here, that'll be the one where you have the most opportunity with the least amount of risk. Okay? All right. Let's see what's in the headlines today. Facebook's COO Sheryl Sandberg explained how she's coping with her husband's death. She also said Mark Zuckerberg has helped her and why grief leave is as important as maternity leave. You know, I somehow missed that bit of news. A 57-year-old Ohio resident told Business Insider what it's like to have a surprise dinner with Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook's CEO has given himself a personal goal of visiting the roughly 30 U.S. states that he hasn't been to yet by the end of 2017. So I wonder if he just showed up on this guy's doorstep. You think? Wow, they're sitting around the kitchen table. About 2 weeks ago, Daniel Moore received a cryptic phone call. The 57-year-old resident of Newton Falls, Ohio, was told that a billionaire philanthropist from California wanted to meet and have dinner with his family. I thought it was a prank phone call, Moore said. I almost hung up. Moore pressed the person on the other end of the phone to reveal his employer's identity. While the staffer refused to give a name, he teased that 90% of Americans use his boss's product every day. So Moore agreed to the visit. A few days later, another staffer showed up at Moore's house for a preliminary visit. He walked around Moore's property, took pictures, and asked to come inside and help decide where his boss would have dinner with Moore's family. After a few more days of planning that involved the billionaire staff arranging the dinner menu and catering from a local restaurant, yeah, he's not going to eat some stranger's food, right? Another employee arrived at Moore's house on the evening of the planned visit. Moore was informed that the identity of his mystery dinner guest would be revealed just 15 minutes before he arrived. And like clockwork, 15 minutes after Moore was finally told the name of his guest, the convoy of black SUVs drove through Moore's quiet neighborhood, pulled into his driveway, parked in his front yard. They parked in the driveway, right? Facebook's 32-year-old CEO has given himself a personal goal of visiting the roughly 30 U.S. states that he hasn't been to yet by the end of 2017. The reason why? To get out and talk to more people about how they're living, working, and thinking about the future, he wrote in a Facebook post from January. Yeah, this doesn't sound like somebody that's getting ready to run for office, no. Moore, who works in a Russian-owned steel mill as an engineer, described Zuckerberg as a real down-to-earth, outgoing guy with good manners who asked to take his shoes off before he entered the house. The guest list included Moore's wife and kids, as well as a few local friends. Moore wanted to seat the Facebook CEO at the head of the table, but a staffer told him that Zuckerberg preferred otherwise. He does not feel comfortable at the head. He likes to be surrounded by people. So instead, Zuckerberg sat at the middle of the dining room table with his staff in the kitchen, pecking away at their laptops during the meal. As everyone ate dinner over plastic plates, Moore asked Zuckerberg to explain what brought him to Northeast Ohio. Zuckerberg said he was on a fact-finding mission. That last year it dawned on me that I don't know my own country. The elephant in the room quickly became President Trump. Moore is a self-described political activist and independent who voted for Obama twice before voting for Trump. His wife Lisa is a school teacher who also voted for Trump on his promise to abolish Common Core. After Zuckerberg asked them why they had voted for Trump, Moore turned the tables and asked if Zuckerberg had spoken with Trump since he was elected. Zuckerberg, who was noticeably absent from Trump's meeting with tech leaders in December, said he had in fact talked with Trump multiple times on the phone. Zuckerberg's statesman-like cross-country tour immediately sparked more speculation that he was preparing to run for president, a rumor that's refused to die over the past year. Zuckerberg has helped fuel the speculation by regularly posting photos on his Facebook page that look like they're from a campaign trail. He's been photographed working the assembly line at a Michigan Ford factory, hanging out with firefighters, and even feeding a calf on a farm in rural Ohio. But if there's one message Zuckerberg and his dozens of staffers want to get across, it's that this U.S. tour is not an elaborate publicity stunt designed to set the stage for his eventual run for office. After his surprise dinner with Zuckerberg last week, Daniel Moore said he was instructed by the CEO's spokeswoman to hammer home to anyone who asked that Zuckerberg had no aspirations to make a presidential bid. Even still, Zuckerberg has surrounded himself with numerous former government officials who accompany him on his trips. The list even extends to Zuckerberg's personal photographer, Charles Omani, who worked for the White House during both Obama terms, the 8 bodyguards and roughly half-dozen aides who accompanied Zuckerberg to Moore's house for dinner were all identified as former Secret Service members. A spokesperson for the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative later told Business Insider that there were fewer people on site than reported, and none of them have Secret Service backgrounds. Zuckerberg himself has publicly said he has no plans to run for president. He shared the same sentiment in private to Moore and his family over dinner. Clad in his trademark gray t-shirt, Zuckerberg discussed his remarkable journey from the Harvard dorm room where he created Facebook 13 years ago. Never in my wildest dreams did I think Facebook would be where it is today. I never expected to make this amount of money. Zuckerberg has committed to giving away 99% of his roughly $60 billion net worth through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, which he runs with his wife, Priscilla Chan. He so far invested in education startups and pledged $3 billion to aid curing the world's diseases. Just think, if I was in Washington, D.C., how much could I do? Moore remembered Zuckerberg saying, how much progress could I actually make there? He makes a pretty good point. Zuckerberg's visit to Ohio last week included a community college's machine learning lab, an opioid addiction clinic, and a juvenile detention center. Each of the stops could be seen as hints towards areas of future investments. The spokesperson declined to comment on the specifics of what Zuckerberg said at Moore's house or why they were selected for the visit. While Moore admitted to knowing a little about Zuckerberg before the visit, he says he is a frequent user of Facebook, and he's now one of the CEO's 90 million followers on the social network. There's a lot more to Mark than just Facebook. Huh. Well, when the phone rings and Mark says he wants to come have dinner with you, I do hope you'll give me a call. Hackers used a long-neglected vulnerability in phone networks to empty victims' bank accounts. A number of German customers of telecom network O2 Telefonica had money stolen as a result of the SS7 vulnerability. Now, I've not heard about this. There's a major vulnerability in the way phone networks talk to each other, and hackers have used it to drain victims' bank accounts. The issue's been known about for years, and public demonstrations have highlighted the issue, but nobody's done anything about it. A number of German customers of telecom network O2 Telefonica were stolen from using the SS vulnerability. So now there was public demonstrations saying, hey, you guys need to fix this, and nobody fixed it. So how does it work? Signal System Number 7, or SS7, is how phone networks talk to each other, ensuring customers don't lose service, and is used all over the world. But you can also use it to spy on people, reading their messages, tracking where they go, and redirecting calls. So if an attacker gets access to the SS7 network, they can do real damage. That's what happened in Germany. It's not clear who the attackers were or how they obtained their access, but the report does detail how they hit their targets. First, the victims were targeted with phishing emails that tricked them into giving up their logins and passwords to their online banking accounts. This wasn't enough to steal money from their accounts, because the Germans had a form of two-factor authentication activated. This meant the bank texted them before each money transfer to seek approval, theoretically preventing hackers from stealing cash, even if a victim's login details are compromised. Now, this is where the SS7 attack comes in. Over the past months, the attackers reportedly logged into the victims' accounts, tried to transfer funds, then redirected the two-factor text messages to themselves. They confirmed the transfers, drained the accounts, and the victims couldn't do anything about it. John, is that you?
It sure is.
Hey,
what
welcome to the show.
About just now?
I'm sorry?
Thanks very much. What were you talking about just now?
Well, there's a vulnerability in the phone system. It's called SS7, and it's been known about for years, and someone just broke into that network, and some hackers used this the vulnerability is so known, there's been public demonstrations asking the banks to fix it, and somebody got into it here in the last few days and stole quite a bit of money from quite a bit of people in Germany.
Oh, okay. Well,
they've known about the vulnerability since 2014.
Well, there's another vulnerability I was going to break the news on this show.
What's that?
That not many people know about. Well, the Intel chips, all the chips made since 2010, have a vulnerability in them that can really, can enable anybody to control another computer, can access it and virtually take it over. That's a pretty serious deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how does someone access that?
I have to get I actually meant to send you the report on it. I have it somewhere. I just got clogged up with info this weekend, and I didn't get to it.
Gotcha.
In time, but I'll probably get to it tonight, and I'll send it over. Maybe we can talk about it tomorrow. But it's a big deal. And also, my wife has fallen victim to one of these goddamn ransom things. I don't know how the heck that happened, but it's they come in and take over all your files, and you can't access your files. It doesn't completely disenable your computer. You can still use a computer, but there's certain things you can't do with it, and there's not much you can do about it, to be honest with you.
That's what I've heard. How much ransom they asking for?
Well, nothing too drastic at the moment, but we haven't paid anything or anything like that. I don't think it's too much of a big deal with what she has actually lost. It's not. I think it's replaceable, and it's not
worth it. Yeah.
but it is a kind of it's a real wake-up call, and it just shows you anybody. Listen, my wife is incredibly savvy in the net. I mean, she's like you, and probably your wife. You know, she's like the queen of the net. There's nothing that she doesn't know about the net.
Mm-hmm.
And if she can get caught, anybody can, because she's pretty smart. You know, and she's incredibly astute when it comes to the net. I mean, she knows it inside out.
Well,
And,
you know, the way they got in.
She knows how to get it. She knows how to get everything. You know, just how to access everything, and for her, I don't know how the heck it happened, but it just shows you. I mean, if they can get her, they can get anybody.
Yeah,
for sure. So.
Well, these people in Germany, they fell victim to a phishing attack where they got an email that appeared to be from their bank, and they clicked the link, and they put in their username and password, and you know, you have to be so careful when you get an email these days. I mean, it's just about at the point where you shouldn't click anything, even if it looks legitimate.
No,
even if you
right.
hover
right.
over it
You're
and
right.
look down at the address bar and everything looks up to snuff. Yeah, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, that's probably what happened with my wife. You know, something just. I think she got. Actually, I think she might have fallen for that. You know, the one where they send you, because we get a lot of. You know, we're shipping a lot of stuff almost every day, and she might have got one of these FedEx alerts or UPS things that you're supposed to click on, and it wasn't the genuine article. So
Gotcha.
That, you know, yeah. You don't click on anything you get from UPS or FedEx. Okay, that's one.
Yeah, I've heard of those. I sure have.
Yeah. Listen, the pretty interesting kind of reaction yesterday to the French election that didn't set the world on fire. However,
what was the outcome?
I think this is Macron won.
Okay.
Quite a big 60+%. And initially, gold and silver rallied. Actually, they spiked down and put in a very good bottom around 12.21 on the gold and the low 16s on the silver, and then they had a pretty good rally. But got up to about 12.35 or so, 12.34 or 5, a couple of times during the night. And so far, the gold is getting knocked down again. However, the silver is kind of holding in there. And on the options action show on CNBC on Friday, guy Carter Worth, he's a pretty good, great technical guy. He was saying that he thought the silver might have done it here. And to be perfect, as I said to you last week, you know, we're at a point where, you know, if the metals do turn here, it really could turn very bullish. And look, I'm going to tell you something on this show, and many people are not getting the memo. Do you know that there's $1 trillion in stimulus come into these markets, go into the global markets in the first 5 months of this year? $1 trillion. That's never happened before. And I'm telling you, the implications of this at some point down the road, maybe just in a few months' time, is there's going to be an unbelievable rally in the metals. It's going to be epic. I mean, you can't get something for nothing. You can't keep, you know, creating this stimulus out of thin air and not have the consequences sooner or later. It's like Winston Churchill said, you know, we shape our houses and they shape us. In other words, if you kind of, you know, if you overdo things, sooner or later they're going to come back at you. And this is part of my premise. You know, I really believe that history is repeating itself in a really fascinating way. I mean, look, if you take the 20th century and the early 1900s, and I mean, to put it in simple terms, and I've mentioned this, I think I've mentioned this before, you know, we're really retracing history today that's very similar to 100 years ago. okay? You know, we had a period of tremendous innovation 100 years ago. We had the Industrial Revolution that started in 1875, and that's when the markets took off in 1875, getting up to the beginning of the 20th century, in the 19th century. And, you know, it was very prosperous. There was a lot of prosperity in the early 20th century. In Ireland, for example, and the very prosperous Dublin and Cork and London and, you know, many places around the world, and the U.S., the early days of the U.S. in the 20th century. And then, you know, the car, I mean, a lot of things were being, think about it, you know, the electric light bulb and electricity and the car and steam engine and the railroads and everything were very dynamic and created this. Now, if you look at what happened, you know, we rallied into the end of the century, the 19th century, and peaked, literally peaked at the beginning of the 20th century, just like we did in 2000. There was a correction down into the 1902-3 panic, the panic of 1903. That was the bottom. Then we rallied up to. It happened a bit quicker. The rally in the early 1900s. It got up to. You know, we kind of peaked out in about 05 or 06. And then there was the 07 crash, right? So this crash happened quicker than, you know, or earlier than the 2009 crash. And then the market started going higher, just like we are today, started making new highs in the second decade of the 20th century. And towards the end of the second decade was, you know, pushing pretty hard. And then it got up to, you know, and as you've heard me say on the show, I believe that in 2022, 2023, we're going to have some trouble, and possibly inflation, really massive inflation. So, you know, the funny thing is that in the latter years of the second decade, there was no inflation. We had a disinflationary period. There was no inflation, and everything seemed to be, you know, everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, you know, after the war, the inflation showed up in the Weimar Republic in Germany, you know, 1,000,000%, you know, and listen, it started out, you know, right, you know, maybe up to 2021, 22 is still pretty flat. And then all of a sudden, the inflation was up 10%, then it went 100%, then 1,000%, then 1,000,000% in short order. And that's happened to Zimbabwe and Venezuela and Turkey and Iran and a few other, you know, it's happened, and Russia to a certain extent. You know, it's happened to probably 10 currencies. In, you know, in other words, we've had a kind of an early warning sign, if you like, a shot across the bow or 10 shots across the bows in seeing what's happened to, you know, a dozen currencies around the world, as the dollar has been this incredibly strong recently. So, but what I believe is that because of this, especially with this $1 trillion that's being put into the market right now, into the economies, you know, there's this unbridled stimulus going on around the world at a pace that's never happened before. And look look, they stimulated the economy in 1975, but we know after the 74 crash, and the 75, the market doubled from, you know, from the lows of 74 to 75, the market went up 100%, and, you know, the economy was starting to recover. But ultimately, gold went up 8-fold from 1976 through 1980, and silver went up 10-fold. And I believe we're laying the groundwork right now for the same thing to happen in the next 7 years. I think it's going to be a longer period. It's not going to be, it might be 4 years, but it's probably going to be 7 years because of certain timing issues. But here's the thing, the inflation levels are very similar to what they were 100 years ago. And so you had the Industrial Revolution started in 1875. The technological revolution of this era started in 1975, almost exactly 100 years later, with the Intel, the birth of Intel and the chip and all that. But it's a pretty fair bet. Look, I think we're going to have a pretty good run into 2020, the way things are going, with some interruptions along the way. But in the early next, sometime in the next 4 years, there's going to be. Look, it's just when you get if Trump gets reelected, then it's more likely that this will happen, because it's something that happens with every two-term presidency. Obama, once he gets past the first couple of years of the second term, the trouble starts, and that's probably what's going to happen in the early 20s. But I think this time the inflation of the Weimar Republic could be a worldwide phenomenon. It could hit a lot of countries, including the U.S. and Europe and Britain, and there may not be too many that get out of it, so that are unaffected by it. So that's and there's the debts. Remember, we got things happening this time around that have never happened before, such as debt, a world that's absolutely laden in debt. So there's a lot of issues out there under the radar that are kind of being, not being considered at the moment, that could, they could come to bear at any time, and they could happen very quickly and dramatically. I mean, if you think back to 2007, everything was dandy, and then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose, and we're suffering some similar symptoms, right? Particularly in the car market. We've had an unbelievable run in auto production, since 2009, and we're getting to a point where we're running out of buyers for new cars. I mean, it's just there's been a huge amount of cars produced, from 12 million to 17 million a year, cumulatively over that time is a massive amount of cars, and there's almost 100 million cars being produced around the world every year now. So, there's only a limited number of people who can afford those cars. So we're definitely running into trouble there, and we're in many other aspects of life. We're running, TVs. People have spent. Look at the retails. I mean, they're closing 8,000 stores. So there are some warning signs out there of trouble. And I did say last week I thought we'd get a bit of a pullback, but I don't think it was. It's going to be short-lived. And right now, the buy the rumor, sell the fact of the French election is probably happening before our eyes, because we're back on a buy here. The stuff I'm working on. I'm not going all out on this just yet. I'm checking it out to see how it's performing, and all I can tell you is it's performing almost flawlessly. And what's particularly good about it is when we get on even a mini trend, it seems to catch these trends really well, and it caught the highs last night. When the announcement, when the French Macron won, the market opened higher and sold off. But it hasn't sold off that drastically. I mean, the NASDAQ's only down probably 20 to 30 points from the high. And then it turned around, and it looks like it wants to go higher again. Yeah. And why wouldn't it? You got. I mean, Facebook with the kind of numbers. I mean, remember we said we'll probably go to 150. We're just at about 151 right now, 150 and a half. And based on the way Facebook continues to grow, it looks like the stock's going to go higher. And somebody was talking this morning about the travel business is a massive industry now, and that's why this price line and these other travel stocks continue to go higher and higher, because the business is growing. And think about this Intel deal. If Intel has to, if a whole bunch of computers, like five or 6 years worth of computers has to be replaced because of a chip issue, that could be that could stimulate a lot of business. And Intel has underperformed in this recovery and is certainly overdue for higher levels. I mean, it's for a while Intel was a bit stagnant, but it's got itself into a lot of new businesses, and so it's just like Microsoft is stunning the world with its mega growth now. I wouldn't rule out a big push from Intel.
Yeah, Microsoft looked like they were down and out there for a bit, but they've really come from behind.
Exactly. It's amazing. And then you got Amazon as well, and the other one, Chinese guy.
Alibaba.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I remember, when you go back and look at Baidu, when Baidu went public, it had a strong open, and then it had a sell-off, right, that came down and was a bit flat for a while, for maybe a year or so, and then it came from behind, and it's kind of been going up ever since almost. And the same thing is happening with Alibaba right now. It kind of went public up around 120 or so, went down to 60, 50, 60, and now it's close to all-time highs, and that's a stock that's probably going to go very similar ways to Amazon. I mean, they're formidable competitors, these two, and they're likely to, between them, they pretty much own the world right now. So I wouldn't underestimate Alibaba as well. Down the road. Anyway, the platinum is acting definitely better than it has in some time, and is sort of hinting that a metal's low is close. It's hard to say. Look, if we went straight up from here in the metals, you could argue the bottom is probably in, but we're not there yet. We've got to see a bit of a breakdown in the dust. We could see some further testing this week in the metals, and you can't rule anything out on the downside because, by the way, apparently the silver ETF fell 14 days in a row. And apparently that's never happened before. It's stocks, things that go down 14 days in a row don't have a habit of turning around right away. You can't say it can't happen, but usually when that happens, there's another leg down before the final turn. I don't think it's that far away on the silver or the gold, and obviously with everything going on, there's a chance that gold could turn. When gold turns off this whatever, when gold turns, you got to be long, because it might be a run for the roses. It could be a really, really big deal. And I happen to be pretty bullish on gold the second half of this year. I think later on this year we're definitely going to go up a couple of $100 at least into the 14, maybe the 1500 level before the end of the year. And on the silver, I think once we get back over 17 even now, it's probably going to be on its way. So that's what I'd be looking at. I think we're in a very, a time of where you're probably going to be picking up some great bargains in the metals, and we're probably going to have a very big run in the commodities. And you don't have to look. I mean, remember even if the market takes a dive. Remember what happened in 2007. You had a commodities boom in 2008 to end all booms. So it was the biggest boom ever in commodities. So it could definitely the world could change. And look at the dollar. The dollar is bouncing a bit today, but the dollar has been hitting new lows in the last few days. If that continues, obviously at some point the metals are going to respond as well. So
Now, the VIX is hitting the lowest intraday low in 10 years. Is that right?
yeah. Well, look, it just, I mean, look at the way the market had every reason to break this morning, you know, if it was going to. And it just, so far it hasn't. You know, unless it were to turn down again, I'd have to say, you know, you have to be bullish right now, at least unless it turns lower. If it turns lower, that could be a problem. But right now, it's you know, we're just a fraction off an all-time high in the Dow. We already made an all-time high in the S&P on Friday. We're practically making all-time highs in the Nasdaq. The semiconductors looking very strong. So, you know, the market's, look, as I said last week, the market's not as strong as it was because the media stocks are getting killed and the steel stocks got clocked and a few other isolated things happened. So you have to be aware of that. But I would say if we don't get any break here in the next day or two, it looks to me like the market's going to break out to the upside and continue this run. And or we will have some sort of a pullback in May, and then probably a summer rally into June, July, August. And I think that with the healthcare issue, you know, I think the Republicans are going to have to do this right. You know, they're going to have to. They've got to make a better deal all around than what they had before. Otherwise, it's going to hurt them politically. You know, I don't think Trump wants to allow that to happen. So they're going to do whatever it takes to get this health bill right and try and do the best they can for the American people. Because if they don't, it could really derail all this good stuff that's been happening in the last few months. Is my feeling about it.
I listened to a podcast over the weekend, This American Life, with Ira Glass. It's really popular. It's a classic, and part of it had to do with Pat Buchanan. He ran for president several times, and they had a lot of clips from his last presidential run, which was in '96. And his slogan was America First. His campaign was almost identical to everything that Trump said on the campaign trail and is now trying to do while in office. And they asked him, they said, are you offended by this? He goes, no, not at all. He goes, it's just, when I brought it to people's attention, it hadn't grown to the point where other people were willing to recognize it. He said, I'm just thankful that he won, and hopefully he can actually do something about it. Everything from, you know, bringing the jobs back home to sealing up the borders. They were like carbon copies of each other. They really were.
You know, I think the smartest thing that Trump could do right now in regards to the border is he should use some of the military, since he got so much money for the military, that he should use some of the military budget, not to build a wall, but to increase the surveillance, use the high-tech surveillance with drones and all that kind of thing, and sensors and that.
Right.
Because that might be more effective, actually, in
a
lot of ways. Because
are you familiar with McAllen, Texas?
Yeah, sure.
This was on that podcast too. Bannon from Breitbart, back before he got picked by Trump, he did an interview and he was talking about McAllen being a safe haven for the cartels. It's where they move their mothers and their grandmothers, and they send their children to school there, and it's like a no-war zone. It's a place where the cartels can peacefully coexist because that's where they put their families. Have you heard that? Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah, it's about 80% Hispanic in the valley. It's kind of amazing because when I first came to the valley about probably 30 years ago, I mean, that shocked me because I couldn't find anybody who speaks English, and it was, I mean, seriously, and you know, and I was thinking that the northern part of Mexico, you think everybody would speak English, right? But that's not the case. It's heavily Hispanic, right into the U.S. in a pretty big way, and so it's, you know, it's not that different from Mexico in the valley in a lot of ways. I'm not, you know, it's still America, but it's
right.
You know, but it is very, it's very sympathetic to Hispanic. I mean, and Mexico. And I mean, listen, most of the officials and mayors and all that, they're all Hispanic. I mean, you know, that's just the way it is. All the newscasters, the whole everything. It's very, very Hispanic in the valley. So there's a huge amount of sympathy for Mexico, and obviously the ability for people to blend in. And I mean, probably most of the Border Patrol agents and the customs are Hispanics as well.
Yeah. So there's probably some truth behind what he said. And it makes sense that the cartels would want to get their families away from the violence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's quite integrated, actually. You know, right up to even going into San Antonio, even up as far as San Antonio and Houston. And you know, Houston is a pretty you know, cosmopolitan. There's a lot of Indians in Houston now. Huge Indian community there. So I've grown up in Houston. So. And
Indian as in Native Americans or from India?
No, Indian. Indian, you know, Indian. The cricket, the guys who play cricket.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Huh.
So,
I wonder why Houston.
Don't know. It just happens. And
it's one of those things, huh?
Yeah, and then the Indians are, you know, pretty big in California too, now with all the high tech. And you know, the Indian guy running Google and another Indian guy running Microsoft. It's a pretty big deal. You know?
Yep.
You know, we're creeping high. The gold stocks are starting to turn higher again, and after a bit of a pullback today, and the nuggets and the dust rather, and the J dust are getting knocked down here. I tell you, if they get knocked down into the low 30s, if the dust goes down into the low 30s and the nugget starts making new highs, the lows might be in. They might be in on the metals. So it feels to me like there's a possibility of a runaway move coming. I just can't. I'm not. It could come this week. It could come. It might take a while, but it's coming. There's definitely a runaway move coming. And remember, you know, with the higher the market goes, ultimately the higher gold and silver are going to go. It's because it's just go back to 2007 to know that and the history. And most of the selling, the reason why gold has been under pressure since 2011 is the European banks sold about 1,500 tons of gold. They don't have much left. Most of it's gone to China, India, Russia, and other countries, and these guys continuing to buy. So you know, if they and at the same time, gold production is starting to decline. But people are getting richer. The world's getting richer. The world is massively richer than it was, 6 months ago. It's $8 trillion richer. 8 trillion. People are going to be buying gold. The Indians love gold. The Chinese love gold. And if their currencies are threatened, and the thing about India is because of the currency situation, gold is a currency now. Gold is a currency in India. So, and that could happen. That could become more widespread in time. So, one of these, this when the world suddenly has a demand for gold, that the price could move very quickly. Look at the Bitcoin. Bitcoin is.
I think broke $1,600. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I mean, based on that, gold should be at $1,900 now. It should be at new highs. So, that may be a kind of a leading indicator. We're seeing palladium leading the way higher. Maybe the turn is coming in platinum. That's kind of a prerequisite for the next rally in gold, I think. It's speaking about the France thing, I think the reason why Macron won and Le Pen didn't this time, because France leaving the euro community is a pretty drastic step, and it fits with what I've been saying all along. I said it on this show. I think Britain leaving the euro is totally insane, especially when they've got to pay $100 billion to leave. I mean, it's ridiculous. The $100 billion extrapolated out to the U.S. to the size of the U.S. economy is like about a $600 billion exit fee. I mean, that's just why would they ever do that? I mean, they got to be bonkers to do that. Give away $600 billion, the equivalent of $600 billion to get out of a trade agreement. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That they have to renegotiate, and at the end of the day, it's all the same. But the reason why the French, look, the French is the most visited country on earth. It's got the biggest tourism business on the planet. If they shut their borders, they die. I mean, the economy's in bad enough state already. And the second thing is they're an integral part of Europe. They've gotten used to it. They like to be able to zip over to Switzerland without having to go through a frontier checkpoint, or go to Germany or Belgium or any other place they want, or Luxembourg or Liechtenstein or any place. That's the whole beauty of Europe. You can drive anywhere in Europe and you don't get hassled by people. And I've always said that, you got to putting the Channel Tunnel where you can drive to France and or take a train, and be there in an hour or two. It's incredible. But the big thing is you could drive a truck over to Europe and load up with wine. You can buy as much wine as you want from France, or snaps from Germany, or whatever you want, and nobody's gonna, you bring it all back to Britain and you don't have to pay anything at the border. That's a huge thing. And as I said, when I lived in Ireland, if you wanted to buy a Porsche in Ireland, you had to pay 2 or 3 times the price that you could get it for in Germany. That's not the same anymore. It's all now the same thing. It's the same in Europe as anywhere else. It used to be the same in Mexico. If you wanted to buy a car in Mexico, a U.S. car, you paid twice as much for it. That's no longer the case. It's because of the NAFTA. It's actually, there's still a bit of a premium for U.S. cars in Mexico, but they're pretty much, they've come down. They've gotten much more in line, and that's really the reason why Macron won, because the French don't want to change what they've got. Europe is a good deal. I mean, anybody who's against Europe is crazy. Europe is a huge economy. It's a 500 million person economy. It's actually, the U.S. and Canada and Mexico is 334. It's about 450 million, maybe 480 million. It's a smaller population, but we actually produce more per capita than Europe still. So it's a bigger economy. So the 3 countries have a bigger economic unit than Europe at this point in time, at least. And more importantly, the 3 countries are the biggest oil producer in the world by far, producing 18 million barrels of oil every day. Nobody can top that. So there's a lot of benefit to these agreements around the world, these trade agreements, these trade blocs. I know look, there's some drawbacks to it as well, like losing business or losing factories. That's the bad part of it. But ultimately, you know, especially in Europe, I mean, look, the next up phase in Europe is happening now after years of terrible growth and high unemployment. That's finally changing, and Europe's coming out of a major slump. And that's why I'm pretty optimistic about the next 10 or 15 years, because we're in a kind of a growth phase that is very similar to what happened 100 years ago. We're still in this very dynamic period of innovation. You know, 100 years ago, the 20s, I mean, it was the roaring 20s. And I think we're going to have another roaring 20s this time around, maybe to end it. You know, it'll be much bigger and stronger than anything we've ever seen before. So it's coming. I mean, the pace of innovation that's going on today is never been better than what it is today. It's absolutely incredible, and it's going to keep going. I think the governments are going to drive the growth. They're doing it by pumping all this money into it. They're making sure that the growth continues, and it's the best way. The only way the world can move forward is to grow. It's got to grow its way out of poverty, and it's got to grow its way out of its problems, including debt problems. It's the only way. If we turn down from here, I mean, we're going to have we're probably going to have wars and all kinds of things. So I think we should be thankful for where we are today.
Amen. Thank you. I think you're absolutely right.
Listen, thanks for the invite.
Hey, you bet.
Gold keeps pushing higher here, so you never know. We could be close to a turn.
It is up a little bit from where we started talking. Okay, thanks, John. Enjoyed it very much. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow.
Likewise. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Looks like Microsoft is launching another Surface tablet later this month. The company is releasing new hardware at an event in Shanghai. China is about to make its internet even more censored. Wow. The country made a pledge on Sunday to strengthen controls over search engines and online news portals. John just mentioned Baidu, which is the Chinese version of Google. What a tough way to go. Facebook has published a series of fake news advertisements in the UK press. The ads, which appear in papers including The Times, The Guardian, and Daily Telegraph, contain a list of 10 things to look out for when deciding if a story is genuine. Now, we've talked a lot about fake news ever since that became a buzzword. The ads in papers, including The Times, The Guardians, carry a list of 10 things to look out for when deciding if a story is genuine. They include checking the article date and website address, as well as making sure it isn't intended as satire. Facebook is under fresh political pressure to tackle fake news in the run-up to the UK general election. Meanwhile, a BBC Panorama investigation to be broadcast later today has found the social network played a decisive role in both the US election and Britain's EU referendum last year. The platform said it had already removed tens of thousands of fake Facebook accounts, and that systems were now monitoring the repeated posting of the same content or a sharp increase in messaging. They're flagging messaging accounts. Facebook is also decreasing the ranking of stories that people tend to read but not share. The danger is, for many people, the main source of news is Facebook. And if the news they get on Facebook is mostly fake news, they could be voting based on lies. This is why they're concerned about the UK general election, which comes June 8th. In a report released last month, Facebook admitted it had seen political propaganda deliberately spread on its site. We've observed many actions by fake account operators that could only be performed by people with language skills and a basic knowledge of the political situation in the target countries, suggesting a higher level of coordination and forethought. Facebook's top 10 steps for spotting fake news: be skeptical of headlines, look closely at the URL, web address, investigate the source, watch for unusual formatting, consider the photos, check the date, check the evidence, look at other reports, ask yourself, is the story a joke, and accept the fact that some stories are intentionally false or satirical. Now, originally, Zuckerberg had a crew trying to cull the fake news. He got rid of them, and he turned it over to the machines, and the machines didn't do nearly as well as the humans did. And now we're back to Zuckerberg kind of shrugging his shoulders and going to eat dinner with those nice folks saying, you know what? There's not that much I can do about it. A CEO who invested in Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat early on explains how he knew it was the smart move. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk, who you may or may not have heard of. I met my wife on JDate in 2003. I just remember thinking in 10 years, every single person, I didn't think they'd be swiping to the right, but I'm like, every person's going to do this because it's practical. People are romantic. People are like, I'll never buy a tomato on the internet. This is what I heard in 1996. And I'm like, yeah, you will, because time is valuable, because other things matter more. I knew because I thought people would buy stuff on the internet long before a lot of people thought that. The CEO of multi-million-dollar company VaynerMedia was right, and that same intuition led him to become an early investor in some of the biggest tech companies today. His first investment was Twitter, followed by Tumblr and Facebook. Yeah, I guess the home run out of that would be Facebook. He's also invested in Snapchat, which is struggling to hold on to its IPO price. But think about the first time you logged on to the internet. Was it with one of those AOL CDs? You were probably running Windows 95. Would that be right? I'm trying to remember what came before 95. I mean, for a while the internet consisted of AOL and Yahoo. Before that, I mean, it existed, but you were logging onto bulletin boards hosted on somebody's personal computer, or you were logging into universities, this World Wide Web and all these websites didn't exist. Porsche is opening a digital technology center with 100 staff in Silicon Valley. The German car company will aim to forge new partnerships, cooperate with venture capital companies, and invest in new companies. Google Drive now hosts more than 2 trillion files. That figure includes photos, videos, documents, and all other kinds of files. Warner Music Group extended a licensing deal with YouTube. It means that the label's songs will remain on the web's most popular destination for streaming music. I mean, if you want free music, That's where you go. You go to YouTube. Wonder how they managed to pull that off with Warner. Warner has an extensive music library. Okay, our good word for the day. God is at work in your circumstances. His power is at work within us to carry out His purpose. Ephesians 3:20. It's from the Amplified. Now, John Walker writes, we manage time, we waste time, we spend time, and we save time. We wish it would come, we wish it would pass, we see time fly, we feel it drag. We watch clocks and carry calendars, yet God alone controls time. He created time, and His creations are fenced by His time, directed and guided by His loving hand. We're surprised by unexpected developments, but God is never surprised by even the most disastrous turn of events. And your outlook on life changes dramatically when you know that at this very moment, God is working within you to carry out His purpose. Think about how you'd live if you were absolutely certain God was at the end of your deadline. Even if there were mere seconds left, you believed with certainty He was working through your circumstances. Believing God is there and about to provide is the essence of faith. Hebrews 13:8, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Time cannot diminish His love or His power to work within your life. He was there in the past, He's present in the now, and He'll be there in the future. The truth is, God has time in the palm of His hand. 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday. Psalm 94. God's ultimate goal is to bring to eternity, not just get you through to the weekend. Remind yourself that in every situation, His power is at work within us to carry out His purpose, and to do so superabundantly above all that we dare ask or think, beyond our highest prayers, desires, thoughts, hopes, or dreams. Hey, brother, got a minute? That's a good word for the day. All right, let's take a quick look at these Concierge Trade Alerts. Now, last night, Globex opened. It opened here, spiked down, and made a very nice run north. On our alerts, I'll drag them out one time so you can take your screen grab or however you want to do it. There you go. There's gold at 1231. Take care, John. Windows 3.1, David, you're right. I remember that now. Okay. Gold, consider being long, 1231. Put in a high at 1235. So that's $400 per contract available. We do not get out at the swing high or swing low. Why? Because we trail our stop. And then a couple of small opportunities cross here, and then the next big move up was $590 per contract available. And the short side, which is 1224, has not triggered. Back to the S&P. That story hasn't changed much since the beginning of the show. On the Dow, let's see what we got here. Probably about the same as the S&P. This was the open last night. Gap higher, then sold off, and then went flat. On the Dow, we were looking to sell 920. Okay, this first little move here took us down 12 ticks. This move took us down 18 points, actually. The Dow doesn't do ticks, only points. That's about it. That's about it. The buy side was up at 980, and that has not been triggered. The alert came out right here at the beginning of the 6:30 p.m. Eastern candle. July soybeans. Whoa. Okay, so this was the open. Friday's close, Sunday night open. Looking to be buyers at 977, no shot at that. And sellers at 971. And that's going to be right there. So from 971. So that's 4 points times $50 per point. And important prices, important areas, almost always tested. And we get a low here at 963.50. So we'll call it 64. So that's going to be 7 times $50 per point. Again, trailer stop. Okay, bonds, here we go. Okay, there's the open. Right there. And the alert right there. Okay. So on June bonds, the alert said to consider buying 152.12, which we didn't. Did we see it? Oh, yeah, by one tick. Now on a 30-minute chart, that's a considerable amount of risk. If you took it on a 30-minute chart, you got deep pockets, but it would have been a stop out. If you found an entry that was more reasonable on a smaller time frame, still got stopped out, but you didn't part with nearly as much money. Okay, short side on bonds, 151.09. Just about where we are right now. $151.09. Swing low, 151.02. So that's 7 times 31.25 per tick. And here, that's going to be price got back above the trigger, important prices, important areas, and this time it moved 8. Again, bonds, we don't recommend that for those just learning how to trade. Got some experience in the markets, and you want to go trade bonds, be careful. Be careful. Okay. Crude oil. Okay, that's the Globex open. Last night, Friday's close, Sunday night open, pretty flat. Caught a little bit of a rally. This has been an unusual contract, quite frankly. By 46.70. Okay, the swing high was 98. So that's 28 ticks at $10 a tick, or $280 per contract available. And on the sell side, 46.15. 46.15. There we go. Well. Hope you took the buy side and called it quits. All right, got a swing low here at 46.04. That's 11 ticks. $10 a tick. Important prices, important areas. This time we make it down. We got 16 ticks or $160 per contract. And on this drop, we make it down to 83. So $46.15 minus $45.83. $32 ticks or $320 per contract available. Back above the trigger, down we come again. And this time we make it down to 73. So that's going to be 27 plus 15. $42. Yeah, that's not too shabby. 280 on the north side, on the south side, 110, 160, 320, and 420. Crude. Okay. What do we have left? The Russell. And the NQ, I believe, is it. This looks like some rough going. Okay. We wanted to be a buyer at 56.55, which never triggered. We wanted to be sellers at 56.35. Oh, say it ain't so, Joe. Swing low there. Looks like a stop out. And a stop out. One by a tick, one by 2 ticks. And no trigger long. Okay. Okay, and last, I believe, but not least, the Russell. There's the open. Okay. And last but not least, on the Russell, we were looking to sell 1392. Right there. Sell 1392. Well, you bebopped along here, and on a 30-minute chart, with your stop here, you didn't get stopped out, surprisingly. And the swing low, 84.20 at 85. That would be $350 per contract available. Again, we look for the Russell to come back to the CME in June. Don't know any of the particulars as far as price, cost of the data, any of that good stuff. We're just going to have to wait and see what they tell us when they do it. And speaking of doing it, that's going to do it. And the ES is still sitting in that zone from last week, 2394/95. Wow. Talk about a quiet session. And Friday was, you know, kind of rip-roaring. I mean, look what happened in the afternoon. I began at 12:30 up through 5 p.m. was the close of this candle. We managed to move 12 points. Could that happen again today? We shall see. This is the current high that the market's got to deal with. This is where we gapped open to last night. Actually, we opened at 24.0250. We put in a high at 03.75. And in that same 30-minute period, we began this trudge sideways, 2402.50. I want to remind you guys and there were so many issues going on last week, from health issues to computer issues. Go to cfrn.net/TradeStalker. Find out who this man is, what he's about, what he does. And then go to his website, tradestalker.com, and send him an email, mike@tradestalker.com, or give him a call if it's listed on the website there. But I think he's going to make a change to this, to your benefit. Instead of a delayed trial like it's been for so long, if you come in through our front door here, and probably his own, I think, it's going to be live for a week. So go to tradestalker.com, send an email to mike@tradestalker.com. If the phone number is listed, give him a jingle. But come here, read this page, and then go to TradeStalker and read about the man. He's been trading the markets for a living for 30 plus years. Back when he had to hand draw his charts from the Wall Street Journal. It's a true story. And on his site, you can see a copy of one of those hand-drawn charts. So go there, check it out, check him out. He is Mike Reed. He is the real deal. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading Emini Futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.